Hi, I'm Yakshani Priya Surgoo and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some art tips that I use in my paintings and drawings that can be helpful for you in your own artwork. Tip number 1, reference photos. Reference photos must be clear. The more detail you see in the reference photo, the better it is. If you can see the tiniest of details in your reference photo, that is the tiniest highlights, the tiniest shadows, and the variations of colors of the subject of the reference photo, you'll be able to depict that better in your drawings and paintings. It'll be more accurate and it'll look more realistic. Especially with the way I paint and draw, I like things to look more realistic. So reference photos must be clear. Another thing to look at with reference photos is the angle that the subject was shot. If, for example, a tiger for an example, the tiger was shot at a close range, the face is closer than the body. What can happen is on the photograph it looks fine, the photo looks nice, but when you depict that onto the drawing or painting, you're going to see that as you're drawing it, it's going to look like your tiger's head is too big for its body, in proportion to the body. So the head will be too big in proportion to the body. So it's not going to look good and it's not going to look realistic. So the best way is to use a reference photo that the proportion of the body of the animal, if it's an animal, the body of the animal must be in good proportion to its head. Another example is if the one ear, for example, is obscured or you can't see it's like behind the head. In the photograph, it looks fine. It's behind the head. But if when you're depicting it or when you are now putting it onto paper and drawing it and painting it, it may just look like you either left out his ear, you forgot to draw his ear, or you forgot to paint his ear in, and it looks incomplete. You're drawing or painting, even though the photograph looks perfectly fine. But that because you did not include the ear, it may look in the drawing, the way it interprets into the drawing is that you forgot the ear. It may not look so good. Not all photos, some photos may look good. When you do it onto the canvas or painting or drawing, it'll still look good. But just sometimes what happens is because the reference photo is not clear enough or it does not have a correct angle of the subject, it does interpret onto canvas and to drawings, it may look like it's incomplete. Another thing to look at with reference photos is that if you've got anything that's blurry, the photograph mustn't be blurry. You must be able to see the detail of it. If I have had this with a rose that I recently did, and I was very happy with the rose, but the leaves of the rose, that reference photo did not have leaves. So I wasn't able to use that reference photo for the leaves. So I found another photograph that I tried to use for the leaves, and I kind of rushed it through as well, and it did not look right. It did not look right. So try to get the reference photo from the start, that the reference photo is perfect. You can use multiple reference photos. I have used that, especially where I've got multiple subjects or multiple elements in my paintings or drawings that I need different reference photos. I have done that. But if you're looking for a really accurate, realistic drawing, try to use a good reference photo. If the reference photo is not clear enough, when you're going to get down to drawing and you're going to start drawing, you're going to have a problem with that reference photo. You're going to have a problem with that drawing. That drawing is not going to look realistic. It's not going to be accurate. Or you'll be missing parts of it that you'll not be able to capture. For example, if say you're drawing a horse and the horse is brown, it's a brown horse. If you're using two different photos, yes, you can, but the colors, like for example where the shadows and highlights is of the one reference photo, most likely is not going to look like the second one. The second reference photo may not be identical to that. So you may end up with a variation of color and tone and skin or hair color, but it depends. If you can use it and you can interpret the current reference photo and interpret it into the next reference photo for the certain part that you need that reference photo for, you can do that. If it works for you, that's fine. But preferably, for me personally, I need the reference photo to be accurate. It must be clear, it mustn't be blurry. Whatever the subject is, the subject must be clear, the subject must be properly proportionate, it must look good. And when I take that and put it onto a painting or put that onto a drawing, it must look good. It must not look like I forgot something or something is not, it's incomplete. It must not look incomplete. It must not look like I've added something that doesn't fit in with the painting. A lot of times you have the painting or the drawing and it looks good, but because you've added something from another reference photo that doesn't fit in with your current reference photo, it doesn't look good when you put it onto the canvas or painting. Sometimes you can do a beautiful job and it'll look really good, but as I said, my preference, I prefer to have a good reference photo. It makes it easier for you. You're following one photo and you are getting that details in as per that photograph, and you are amending it and changing it as you like by using one photograph. So you only have one reference to go to. Although I use multiple reference photos in my drawings, in many of them, but I try to stick to one reference photo. Tip number two. Tip number two is your grid drawing method. Now, initially, I never used the grid drawing method. I drew freehand and I was drawing it all the time. All my drawings, pictures, animals, landscapes, everything was done without a grid. I actually still don't use the grid drawing method for landscapes, but you can use it. So normally what I do is I would draw it freehand and it will look good, fine, but it'll take me hours because I would have to keep on erasing and drawing it again and erasing, because then when I get to halfway through the face, I see the one eye is not in line with the other one, and then I got to erase and do it again, and it messes up my paper, and it also takes a lot of your time. It wastes a lot of time. So I've discovered that the grid drawing method does actually help you to do your drawings much more accurately and much faster. So it takes less time to do your drawing and get your drawing onto your paper or onto your canvas. With the grid drawing method, you need to make sure that the blocks that you draw onto the reference photo must be equal on all sides, from left to right and top to bottom. If it's 1 centimeter, it must be 1 centimeter top to bottom and left to right. And the same goes for your drawing. When you're drawing that grid on the paper, draw it lightly so that you can erase it easily. Another thing is, when you're working with the grid drawing method, apart from it saving you a lot of time, I think personally it is a much better way to get an accurate and get a very good proportioned drawing, so you know everything falls in place. You work block by block according to your reference photo. Whatever's in the block on the reference photo, you put in that block on your paper, and you've got the drawing done properly. When I do my drawings on canvas, then I do it, usually I don't, if my canvases are quite big, so I don't have paper that size. So usually I'll take a A3 paper, 1 or 2 or 3 sheets, I will cut it up, join it together, do my drawing on it with the grid drawing method, draw it on there, and then I'll use transfer paper, with the transfer paper onto my canvas with the drawing over it, and then I will just do the drawing onto the canvas, and then I can paint over and work with it as I'm working on the painting. So that's how I use the grid drawing method, but it's much better if you want accurate and realistic drawings. It helps so much to have the grid drawing, to use the grid drawing method, because the grid drawing method does make your work less stressful. You don't take so long and so much frustration to try to get it right. You just got to copy what you see in your reference photo, you see it in your drawing, and you do the drawing, and it saves a lot of time. As I always say, as I've been saying, it saves a lot of time. Tip number 3. Now, tip number 3 is actually something I'm struggling with currently as well. I do struggle with this. Patience. You need to have a lot of patience when you are drawing or when you are painting. Don't rush through anything. When I do a drawing or when I do a painting, I tend to start drawing it. I usually start at the eye. I usually always do all my drawings. If it's an animal, I start with the eye. I start drawing the eye and I work my way section by section down. But now I have experiences with the rose. As I said, I've done the rose lately. The rose came out fine. I took my time, did the rose. But when it came to the leaves, firstly, because I didn't have a good reference photo, and that photo didn't have any leaves in it, and secondly, because I wanted to see the finished product, I a little bit rushed through it, and I couldn't see it. When you rush through the drawings, you're gonna see it in your final result. If you want your drawings to look realistic and accurate, you got to take your time. Work section by section. Do little at a time. If you get tired of doing a section, move to another part. Do that. If you get tired of one color, go to another section with a different color and work on that. If you see, okay, you know what, I'm getting a bit tired of the drawing now. It's not that you're not, let's say, being dedicated to your drawing. It's that you just need time away. Go and do something else. Come back. When you come back, you'll be refreshed. Your mind will be refreshed, and you'll be more motivated to want to do it, because now you're seeing it after a while and you see it with fresh eyes. Your eyes get tired. When you're drawing or painting, your eyes get very tired. So you need to take breaks in between. Don't just sit down and I'm going to draw or paint for 8 hours. It's not going to work if you're going to work for 8 hours. You need to space out your time. Take your time. Do a little at a time. Do one section, then the next, then move to the next, then move to the next. When you're tired, move away, do something else, come back, and then start over again. So that's what basically I do, but I do tend to get a bit impatient, because sometimes I want to see the final drawing and I want to get done with it quickly, or I'm running out of daylight, or I've got something to do and I want to do that. If you've got something else to do and you've got another interest, do it. Go and do that and then come back to your drawing. There's no set rule saying you got to sit down and do so much of painting or so much of drawing. take your time, make it an enjoyable experience. You want to enjoy your art. If you take your time, space yourself out, you'll be so proud of the results that you get after you've taken your time and done it. Like after I did the rose, I did the hummingbird, and that hummingbird that I did, I was so proud of it because I took my time, I did section by section, and I worked a couple of hours on it. But at least I got to a point where I was satisfied with what I've achieved. So try to do that. Don't rush through it. Take your time, section by section. It'll give you a more accurate drawing, it'll give you a more realistic drawing, and you'll be more happy and pleased with the results than rushing through it and then you're not happy. As I said before in the rose drawing, yes, it was a nice drawing, the rose came out nice, I was very happy with the rose, but definitely I find the leaves may have spoiled it. I could have done it a bit better, but I rushed through it a bit. But most of my paintings lately, I have been taking my time, but there are obviously times where I do get a little impatient and I try to rush through it. That's something I'm working on personally myself. I'm working on that, but you need to take your time. So if you do want to do realistic drawings and you want to do accurate drawings, try the grid drawing method if you haven't already. It's much better than drawing it freehand. Yes, freehand is fine. If you're getting it right freehand and you're glad and happy with how it works, that's fine. Stick with it. But if you are struggling and when you're doing freehand and if you get, it's like maybe the face is not proportionate, the ears are not aligned properly, it's taking up time to erase and you mess up the paper and you take a lot of time, then obviously you're not gonna get the results you want if it's not coming out right. No matter how good your drawing can be, if your drawing is not accurate and if it's not in the correct proportions, your drawing can be, your painting and your color pencil work, whatever it is, can be how good, it's still not going to look 100%. If the nose is in the wrong place, it's going to look like the nose is in the wrong place when you're done. If the eyes are not aligned with each other, it's going to look like the eyes are not aligned when you finish. You can have the best realistic fur, but the eyes don't look matching, they're not going to look right. That's going to bring down the whole picture. Now, if you're looking for loose drawing and things like that, that's fine. You're not looking for realistic drawing. Now, I'm personally aiming to get more realistic as time's going on, as I'm painting, as I'm drawing. So I'm aiming for more realistic look. So that's what I aim for. So take your time, use a grid method, try it out, see if it works for you, and also get good reference photos. Another tip on the reference photos is try to use royalty-free photographs. Or if you're using a photograph from a photographer, get permission, or you can purchase photographs if you need to use a particular photograph. But try to use photographs that are not going to violate any copyright laws, because especially if you are planning on selling the work or your artwork, if you're planning to sell your artwork, or if you are going to post your artwork onto the internet, onto any various social media platforms, try to avoid using copyrighted protected material, because it can land you into trouble unnecessary and you don't want that. You want to show your art, display your art, and build up your art career. So try to do it in that way. Then you feel free. You've done this is my work, it's my artwork, I can do it and it's fine. I can use this work, and you feel free. You don't have to worry that is someone gonna complain about it, is someone gonna have a problem with me posting this. So don't get into that. Try to get royalty-free photographs. There are a lot of websites that you can get royalty-free photographs from, but try to double check, run a search on Google, try to see if you can find that image on any website that it's used where it belongs to someone, and so you can avoid any problems, and try to check that out. And then also try to use the grid drawing method. The grid drawing method, another point on that is, if you want to make sure your photograph is really detailed, try zooming in. If you zoom in on your photograph and if you can see the tiniest details, then you know you got a good photograph. And especially if you're using it for a realistic drawing and you want that more realism in your drawing, try to use a reference photo that's got a lot of detail. A lot of free online grid drawing tools available, so you can just use those tools, get the reference photo, put the grid on it, draw the grid onto your paper. So I prefer transferring it to the canvas, because if you're drawing on the canvas, you often leave a lot of pencil marks which are difficult to erase with the eraser on the canvas. So sometimes it even shows through. Now I paint with oils and I paint with acrylics, and I have noticed that especially with oils, the pencil lines take a lot of layers of oil paint to cover it. So try to transfer the image rather using transfer paper from your drawing. I use normal printer paper and I put it on there, I join it together, the sides of my canvas, draw on the drawing, take that, put transfer paper and transfer it to my canvas. It makes it much easier and less messy job. And also with your grid line drawing, try to keep the lines try to keep the lines as light as possible. Enough that you can see it, but it is light so that when you erase it, it's not going to show through. Do not press hard with the pencil. If you press hard with the pencil, you're going to make indents into the paper, and then it's going to cause, not going to look good, because those lines will not come clean and you're not going to erase it out. So try to draw those grid lines lightly. And yeah, well, I think that's all for today. If you have any questions or any suggestions, please comment below. If you've liked this video, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye. Till next time.